November 4th, 2019. Joe here at Simple Life Show. SimpleLifeRemedy.org is a website. Appreciate everybody for joining me today. If you haven't watched Terminator Dark Fate, don't bother. It's not really that great. I had a chance to watch it last night, and I really wish I wouldn't have spent the time doing it. Okay, so here's my review. I'm just going to put spoilers in here because I really don't think it's really worth watching. If you're a real big Terminator 2 fan, or if you're just a fan of the Terminator type of franchise in general, this is not going to be a big surprise because the Terminator franchise has gone through several duds over the last 10, 20 years or so. Of course, the T1 and T2 were probably one of the best films in the franchise. I don't think anybody can really disagree with that. T2, obviously, one of the best films I've ever seen. And I have several problems with this film. Number one, I think that the woke culture is pretty evident. I didn't really even know about some of these articles that were out because I wanted to watch it because it's a Terminator film. You know, I just wanted to see what they were doing with Arnold Schwarzenegger's character and stuff like that. How were they going to twist this in this film to make it watchable? And I was just disappointed because it was watchable, but it wasn't enjoyable at all. It just felt like I was sitting and I was waiting for basically a steak, and I got a microwaved meal instead, and a really bad microwaved meal because they got some pretty decent ones out. I haven't had one in a while, but they look okay. But I'm just talking about 1992 microwaved meal, some just horrible mushy stuff. It's just it's sustainable for you. It sustains the story. No, you know what? It doesn't sustain the story. But this one was obviously a flop. There's a couple main points of contention here, and if you don't want spoilers, if you really just want to watch this and like it and stuff like that, that's fine. I'm gonna try to keep the spoilers to the end, but if it slips out, that's fine. Number one is that the woke culture has kind of just really ruined films over the last number of years. And the think tanks that are in Hollywood that are coming up with these ideas, number one, they're not very creative. And number two, they're trying to inject too much political stuff into the movies. And you could say it's coincidental, but when you see it over and over and over again, the same types of stereotropes and the same type of the stuff that's going on politically and how it kind of meshes with whatever was happening at the time when the film was being made, then yeah, it's not so much a coincidence. We have the main, I'm just going to let you know there's going to be spoilers from here on in. I can't really talk about it without spoilers because most of the spoiler type material is stuff that I have a problem with. Number one, we leave off with T2. Of course, they blew up the building, prevented, Judgment Day, blew up Skynet and all this other type of stuff. Great. Movie ends, credits, and all that kind of stuff. So this was supposed to be a T3 rather than T3 Rise of the Machines, which I honestly believe was a better movie than this. I believe that the, probably one of the worst movies in the franchise of Terminator, the Rise of the Machines, was actually better than Dark Fate. And the reason is because it still was somewhat, continuous with the plot, and it didn't completely destroy everything. And here we have Dark Fate that has, number one, John Connor gets killed within the first 5 minutes of the movie. John Connor does not play any role in this film at all, which makes no sense whatsoever because John Connor plays a huge role in all the other films, especially in Terminator Salvation and all the other ones. So this is pretty much what I would consider the Dark Fate of the Terminator franchise, because here's the thing. John Connor is replaced by a Latino girl, and I don't have any problem with Latinos. I don't have a problem with Mexicans or anybody else for that matter. But I think that what's happening here is that, I could look at this from a nefarious point of view and said, hey, they want to just knock off the white guy or white kid, I guess, or white guy. This was basically after T2 when he was still, kid or teenager or whatever. So they just instantly just kill him off, and their explanation of this is just absolutely horrendously stupid. They have this stupid explanation that when the original T-100 or T-1000, I guess, I'm not exactly sure. I think it's a T-1000. But when the original one, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in T2, when he originally is melted, well, there was another T-1000 that looked just like Arnold Schwarzenegger that was still looking for them. Over the course of all this time, he had not found them. So I guess this T-1000 was completely stupid. He came for the same time and all that kind of stuff. And which really doesn't make any sense is that if that future never happened, where when they blew up Skynet and all those offices, then that future where he actually was a type of robot that existed would have never happened, and he would simply cease to exist. But no, he still exists, and he's still walking around after Skynet was blown up, which is a major inconsistency. Now, Terminator, the whole time travel thing in Terminator, they've gotten so lazy over the years with trying to explain the whole time travel thing. I am so sick. If you're going to do a time travel movie, keep it simple, or at least try to keep it somewhat realistic. But when they actually blow up Skynet, then this other so-called Terminator looks just like Arnold Schwarzenegger and his character. He's just kind of trapped. He has nowhere to go, and he even makes a comment in the movie that he was trapped. He has, okay, well, like you had like anywhere in the script that you had some sort of portal to go back into the future. What are you, Marty McFly? That makes no sense. Okay, and also this whole AI thing, the whole consciousness thing, of course they have to throw that in there, right? I don't know if that was just intentional or whether it was like, well, we don't know how to explain this, so we're going to have to, make Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, his robot character more human, right? And of course, this goes along with the conversations that he had with John Connor during T2 about him, talking more human and acting more human and blah, blah, blah. I get it. But this was someone that actually killed John Connor, and now he's apparently married and has kids. Of course, they aren't his own kids because he's a robot. But it's just so this character, this other T-1000 that's played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, who killed John Connor, who now has a family and has kids. Apparently his quote-unquote wife doesn't even know that he's a robot. Well, they haven't had sexual relations. They haven't done any of that kind of stuff. So they just explain it off as like, well, I am just someone that just takes care of her and takes care of her son. She did not once try to get in his pants. She did not once ask him a question like, what's wrong with you? And I think that's kind of a little dig, not only on the whole AI thing, but also the whole masculinity thing where, men are not having relations with women anymore. And, that might be taking that a little bit too far, but you know what? That's fine. I think there's a lot there to be said. But also, the Linda Hamilton and her, her role, her reprisal role as Sarah Connors was horrific. I loved her in T2, and yeah, okay, she's older and sure, her voice is more gruff and stuff like that. Of course, it was always a little gruff, but it was like her acting when T2 was great. It was so good. It was so believable. But this one, she just fell super flat. It was just a whole bunch of just stereotypical type of sayings, like, just trite type. Everything sounded extremely trite. It just sounded like it was just a whole bunch of lines. Like she just had a whole bunch of just one-liners throughout the whole film. I mean, she never really once developed herself. Okay, so she hunts Terminators, and the Terminator, the T-1000 that killed John, was sending her text messages or something like that for years, telling her where new Terminators were going to be spawning and coming through wormholes or whatever. And so she would go and just kill these Terminators. Of course, she's gotten really good at Terminators, killing Terminators, since she did such a great job at T2. You know, of course, Arnold Schwarzenegger had to, you know, help her out and stuff like that. But we couldn't have that in this film. You know, we couldn't have two strong role models. We had to have a killer, you know, Terminator killer, or older woman, you know, total feminist and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not trying to bash the feminists, but I mean, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger is a complete pussy in this film. He is a complete pussy. Now, he does have a lot of, you know, I'm sorry if I offended anyone by saying that word, but if you've seen my videos before, you know, I do happen to say certain words. But anyway, Arnold Schwarzenegger is a complete pussy in this film. And of course, he has a duel out in a fight with the Rev 9 at the end. Of course, the superhuman. Of course, we see the superhuman as this type of another kind of signal to the mesh between human and machine. And you know, she gives up her life at the end to kill the other Terminator because that's part of her humanity, but she's really just a robot in nature. You know, all this kind of stuff. She falls extremely flat and one-dimensional. Linda Hamilton is one-dimensional. You don't believe a word they say throughout the whole film. The only one that's actually somewhat believable is the Latino girl that's in there. And she's not that great either. She's just kind of a ball of emotions and just one-liners. It's just, you know, none of these characters are believable. The Rev 9, I'll finally say this, the Rev 9, the unimaginative type of new Terminator. It's supposed to be a new Terminator, but for some reason it does the same thing as the other Terminator in T2, that played opposite Arnold Schwarzenegger. I can't even remember what they called that Terminator, but that's beside the point. This Terminator can liquefy as well, you know, and turn the liquid into other types of stuff. He can replicate people. Big whoop, you know? Oh, wow, that's a new Terminator. So it just sounds to me like they got together and said, oh, what can we do to make a Terminator 2 Judgment Day Part 2? Well, actually, let's just remake the whole film. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it was. That's all it was. It was just a remake of T2. It had the same damn plot. I mean, you know, besides, of course, the super soldier from the future and, you know, all the time travel inconsistencies and stuff like that. It was just absolutely a remake. Now, if you want to watch this, I'm not going to say that it was terrible. It was an absolutely terrible movie. It kept your attention somewhat. It's something to do if you're bored. It's not just so horrible that you just can't stand. I was able to sit through the whole thing and not shoot myself, obviously, because I'm talking right now. But at the end of it, I was like, you know, I just blew raspberries at the end. I was like, wow, you know, I can't really feel like I completely wasted my time, but now I know Terminator is officially dead. You know, obviously Arnold Schwarzenegger is getting up there in age. He's really trying. I have to give my hats off to him, even though I don't agree with anything he says in the real world. You know, he's tired and stuff. He used to be a great actor and stuff, and you can't really throw him under the bus too much. But I think this was a movie that just was not supposed to be made, and that's why it completely bombed at the box office. Now, of course, if you look here on Rotten Tomatoes, and we'll go over here Rotten Tomatoes, and we'll go ahead and let me actually put that on full screen. But if you go down here, it looks like that the tomato meter is at 70%. Audience score is 85%. I do not believe that. I do not believe that 85% of the people like this film. I think that 85% of the people that went to this film probably had false expectations, or maybe they had no expectations. You know, maybe they hadn't really seen any other Terminator films. I'm really thinking that's what it is, because it's been a long time since a Terminator film, really, and it's been a really long time since Judgment Day. So I think that I think there was a lot of new people that actually are getting into the Terminator franchise. Unfortunately for them, the Terminator franchise is dead now. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It has met its dark fate with this film. And this is a kind of a longer review, and I'm sorry about that. It's just I was expecting so much more from this film, and it really just let me down. I would see Doctor Sleep over this. Doctor Sleep was a really good movie. And everything else. Obviously, if you haven't seen Joker, definitely watch that one. I highly recommend. Joker got lower score on the tomato meter than Terminator Dark Fate. This is why I don't really trust Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of these critics are from a lot of liberal and left leaning, and I know I'm not trying to get into politics, and don't throw me under the bus, but this is just the truth. That a lot of the critics here are from mostly liberal, left leaning type of publications, where they like the type of stuff that happens when you try to inject politics in the movies, when you try to inject certain ideologies based on the time period into movies. And I understand that's going to happen no matter what. But when you make it, it's prime motive, then that's different. Movies are going to mimic and they're going to mirror the political environment in which whenever they're made. That's a given. That's just going to happen. But when you have think tanks that are actively trying to inject these things into movies instead of just focusing on entertainment, then that is when it becomes, kind of dangerous, because, the whole idea behind movies is to kind of escape the doldrums of a typical American life, or a typical life, if whatever human being on Earth. I think people take these things a little bit too seriously. I think that entertainment is just supposed to be what it is. It's just supposed to be entertainment. It's not supposed to be taken seriously. It's not supposed to be injected with a whole bunch of ideologies and stuff like that. It's not supposed to be used for propaganda and for any kind of mental type of education, re-education. I guess that's one way you can put it. But I see that a lot in movies these days. But I'm gonna go ahead and cut this out right now. Terminator Dark Fate. I'm gonna give this one 2 out of 5 stars. I can't give it 1 because I was able to watch the whole thing. Okay, so I gave it 2 stars. As far as soundtrack, there was almost no soundtrack to this. It was just kind of a rehash, and it didn't even sound that great. So I'm gonna give it a 1 star for the soundtrack. The characterization, dialogue, and stuff like that is definitely a 1 star. Plot, another 1 star. Watchability, I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. 2.5, 3 stars. It's watchable if you're bored. So if you're bored, check out Terminator Dark Fate. Until next time, this is Joe with Simple Life. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.